Welcome to a Microsoft Word tutorial on columns and breaks and hyperlinks and a few other things. For our class, what I decided to use as an assignment to kind of illustrate some of these things is creating a newspaper. I wouldn't expect you to actually use Microsoft Word to create a newspaper. There are probably other programs like a publisher that are better for it. But the assignment does a nice job of illustrating some important features of Word that you should know how to use. So let's get started. When you think of a newspaper, one of the first things you think of is a paper that's a little bigger than 8.5 by 11. So probably our first thing that we should do, and you'll see that first thing in our assignment there, is to change our page size to 11 by 17. So if you go to page layout, you can change the size. Of course, you can go and choose your own custom size, but I believe 11 by 17 should be one of our choices, but it's not. So we'll go to more paper sizes, and we'll say we want it to be, again, you'd have these choices here, but we didn't find the one we wanted, so we'll go 11 by 17, which is actually the size of like construction paper. So I'll click OK. Now we've got a much bigger paper size. One thing that might not default come up are your rulers, which I think are fairly helpful to see. And they're really helpful when we're doing columns. So if you don't see any rulers, go to the View tab and check that box for ruler, because it's really nice to be able to see those. And now you'll see that we actually do have a 11 by 17 piece of paper. The other thing under page layout, I think for a newspaper, we probably want to change the margins. The normal is 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, which is nice, and that's what you're going to use most of the time when you're using Word, but for our sake, we're going to switch that to narrow. So anytime you want to change the margins, come to the page layout tab to margins, and if you wanted something that's not one of these default ones, you can set your own custom as well. Alright, so that was our first thing. Next thing we need is a headline. So we need some sort of title for our paper. For this assignment, you can choose anything you would like. Just pick a title for it. It could be like the sports section. It could be the Tim Stapert Times. I don't really care what you choose. So I called my paper here the Stapert's Stories. And so hopefully you've created a title for yours. The next thing we need to do is we need to actually put some articles in. We need to make good use of columns, some graphics, pictures with proper text wrapping, and then we'll talk about the stories with hyperlinks in a minute. For the assignment, I don't really need you to type up your own articles. You certainly may if you want, but you can just go to a website and find some articles that you want to use. So, I'm here at MLive. Maybe I want this article about son and friend accused in fatal baseball bat attack, which is pretty awful. I'm not sure why I don't actually want that in my paper. And I can copy and paste this article in there. Sometimes you'll see like this little print this story key. Sometimes if you click on that, you'll actually get, besides an ad, you'll get a slightly nicer version that for copying and pasting than the version originally. So I'm going to copy and paste most of this article, copy, paste, and I'll put it in. But of course, a newspaper typically isn't going to have just one article on one page like that. We need to use some columns. If I go up to, and I'm going to first make a mistake here intentionally, I'm going to go up to my page layout tab and go to columns, and I probably want 3 columns. As soon as I do that, notice how it even put my headline, my Stapert Stories, into the column. Everything else looks actually quite nice, but it kind of messed up my title. So I'm going to Control Z and undo that and show you a couple different ways to fix this. One way would be to highlight everything that you want into columns and then go up and do columns, and that will put it into 3 even sized columns. Still might not be exactly what you want, because you might want the first story to go kind of all the way down the first column. So let's undo that, and let's actually play around and look at some of these other features in Word. On this Home tab, if you click on this little paragraph, what you'll see is all these little symbols pop up. The little dot means there's a space there. The little paragraph symbol there, that backwards P, means there's a return in there. And so it helps you understand what's going on your piece of paper. So let's do what I just did again. I'll hit Control Y and redo it. And you'll see what happened when I did that. It actually put a section break in there. And a section break, what that means is unlike a page break, which gives you a new page, this just breaks off this section, so the headline, from everything else, and puts everything else below it in a different section. And you'll see down here, you can barely see it, but there's another section break right here. That dotted line means or double dotted line means there's a section break. I can actually put my cursor right there and delete that section break, and it goes kind of back to where I was before. So let's undo a couple things here. Remember when I put this into 3 columns, it put everything into 3 columns. Well, if I want, I can come up here and I can put insert, oh sorry, no, it's under page layout right there. Up here are these breaks. I can put a continuous break in. As soon as I do that, no, actually I want to do it before that return, so I had to, sorry, I hit a backspace there. But I got this section break in that's now breaking off my title from everything else. So it doesn't look, if I didn't like anything happen other than getting this little double dotted line section break continuous in there, which of course you don't see if I don't have those editing tools on. But now if I go into this section and I go page layout, columns, oops, the right one, columns 3, now I have everything after that in columns, and I go all the way to the bottom. If I wanted to say, oh, well, right here I want to jump up and start at the next column, well, that's where another type of break, this column break, works nicely. So I'm going to stop my article right after this paragraph here, put in a column break, and it kicks everything else up to the next level. Now I might want to delete a couple of those returns so that they're at the same height. And now my paper is starting to look more like a paper. I could do the same thing maybe right here, another break in, column break, and it kicks the rest of it up to that final line, and now they're all even. So continuous breaks off that top section from everything else. Column breaks sends everything else into the next column over. Alright, so let's go back a couple steps here, because I want to illustrate another important point here. You notice right here this picture kind of got cut off. If I click on the picture, I can see that the picture should actually go all the way into this next line, or into this next column over here. But because it's part of this column and it's getting cut off, the picture is essentially being treated as a piece of text. I could shrink the picture, but I don't necessarily want to. So what I can do is I can change the text wrapping. Right now it's in line with text. It's really just a part of text. But if I change that to say square or to tight, for a rectangular picture, they're essentially the same thing. When I do that, now the text gets kind of pushed around outside of the picture, and I can move this picture around if I want, and the text will wrap around my picture. So that is another important feature, changing the text wrapping to make your pictures display the way you want them to. Another requirement would be to have multiple stories. You aren't going to have just one story on your first page. So let's go back here. Perhaps I want my story. Here's my story, my first little bit, and maybe it'd be easier to see if I zoom out a little bit. I want maybe 2 columns, and then you've probably often seen on in newspapers where kind of at the end of it, it says, you know, something like continued on B9. Oops. So for this assignment, what I really want you to do is to then put in something like that, a hypothetical continued somewhere else. The story's continued. I'm actually just going to say continued B9, just like that, continued B9. But instead of leaving it as just text like that, I'm going to turn this into a hyperlink. And what that means is then somebody viewing this could click on that link and it'll bring them directly to this story. So the first thing I need is the link to that story, so I'm going to copy that link. And then I'm going to go back to my Word document and I'm going to turn this into a link to that story. So I'm going to insert a hyperlink. You can also hit Control K, it will do the same thing. When you insert a hyperlink, it's going to give you the text to display, which is what I highlighted, continued B9, and then the address that I want it to go to down here, Control V, I pasted that URL to that website. I click OK, and now I've got a working hyperlink. If I click on it, it will actually open up that story on my default browser. There it is. So you get the story. One of the last things that you'll want to go through and do is maybe delete out some of the things you don't want. Like maybe you don't want the picture of the author there, so go ahead and delete that out of there. You can delete anything that doesn't seem necessary. Sometimes when you copy and paste an article, you get all kinds of extra stuff that you don't really want. So you can make it look the way you want. After this one right here, I probably would want to put another break, so I'll go to page layout, put another column break in, and my next article I could post up there. So up here I'm going to paste in another article, and you'll see what happened when I got to the bottom of the page down here. It jumped to a new page, and there's this whole blank section here. The reason for that is this article now goes all the way to the bottom, and the next place for it to go, it doesn't jump back up here. There's a couple ways you could get it to jump back up here. One would be to put in like another section break right here. So let's do a break. We can do a continuous break, and now break off that top section from everything else, and then now the article goes from here, jumps down here, and then goes back up here. Really not the ideal situation, unless I was starting maybe a brand new story right here. The other way that you might just do this, you know, we'll run this story to the bottom of the page. We'll kind of delete out anything extra, so because you're only creating one page for me. So we delete everything that's extra out of there. And then you could put in your third article. The other way you can put it in there then would be to insert a text box. So here's a simple text box. I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to slide it over. You can format your text box whether you want, if you want any, I'm going to go with no color so that I don't have a line covering it, and I can insert another article in that area. I can add columns in there. I can move this around. Your last step, once you've created a newspaper that you're happy with, obviously hopefully it's better than mine. Mine has the same story 3 times. But you've got at least 3 stories, you've got pictures that use text wrapping properly, you've got hyperlinks to each of the different stories. The last thing you need to do then is to save this as a PDF. A PDF, you're probably used to those from Adobe. It's really kind of a finalized, published type of document that somebody else isn't going to edit. So you don't really want to send your final published copy as just a document. So you're going to do a save as and as a PDF. When you do that, so Stapert 1 is fine. I'm going to save that. It'll automatically pull up what my PDF looks like. It should open in Adobe. This is the file then that you're going to submit to me on Google Documents. So you're going to go to your Google Docs. You're going to upload that document that you just created. So go upload to files. Again, if you forgot, this little button here is upload to files. You're going to find that document that you just created. You're going to open it. by default, it's going to have this convert text from PDF and image files to Google Documents. You're going to have that box unchecked. Leave it unchecked. If you try convert it to a Google Doc, a PDF to a Google Doc, it'll end up looking kind of funny. So leave it as unchecked. Go ahead, start upload. When it's uploaded, you should see that little Adobe symbol next to the document. And then you can, just as before, you can share. And you can make sure that you share it with me at tstapert@grchristian.org. So this is how you're going to turn in your final assignment. Save it as a PDF, upload the PDF, and then share it with me on Google Docs.